In the second part of our GDPR series, we're going to take a look at how I prepared for the upcoming changes that GDPR brings. And that might give you an idea on how you can prepare for these new regulations. All and more coming up. Hey there, and welcome back to another video of MeasureSchool.com, teaching you the data-driven way of digital marketing. My name is Julian, and on this channel we do marketing tech reviews, tutorials, and also up-to-date videos on, for example, the upcoming regulations from the European Union, also known as GDPR. Now, in the last video we already talked about the broad strokes of GDPR and what it brings to us as business owners and website owners, as marketers, in new regulations that we need to take care of in terms of the data that we are gathering from users, for example, or how we are processing that data. In this video, I want to tell you how I prepared specifically for the GDPR and these upcoming changes. Now, it's important to know I'm not a lawyer, and I got a lot of help on this from James Chiodo from disclaimertemplate.com, who helped me out with my questions and also got me GDPR ready. But as we discussed in the last video, these are not very clear-cut rules, but rather a framework that you need to apply to your business. So in my case, I really have a small business doing these YouTube videos here and there, and then also selling courses on the other hand, and also doing a little bit of consulting. But these rules probably really apply differently to my business than to your business. So this video is really about how a small business owner would prepare for these upcoming changes. That said, all the information that you're gonna hear in this video is not coming from a lawyer. It's my own opinions, how I prepare for the GDPR. So take it with a grain of salt. And also, if you are a bigger business and you know that GDPR is going to affect you in a big way, better get help from a privacy professional or a lawyer. I can obviously recommend James Chiodo from Disclaimer Template. I'm going to link up his website down below. So without further ado, let's get through how I prepared for the upcoming GDPR changes. Number one, audit your data. Now, first of all, you will need to know what personal information you have on users in your systems. So how do you gather that data? Where is it actually processed and then stored maybe on different servers in different services? And what data is it exactly? That will already give you a good idea on how you need to be dealing with that data later on. So if you have any personal identifiable information, then you need to look up where it is actually stored. Are these storage facilities or these processing facilities also GDPR compliant? And what format are these data points in, so you'll be able to export them and show them to users once they ask for their information. So I went through all the different tools that I actually use, see what data information is actually gathered, and then finding out how this data actually flows into that account, and maybe also how I need to change how this data is processed in the background. On the other hand, I looked at all the vendors that are out there that are now coming out with feature sets to actually keep records and make sure that the data is in compliance with GDPR. Now, that process is not yet finalized, so a lot of companies are coming out with new features in the next weeks, shortly before GDPR actually is enforced. So I haven't really kicked out anybody in terms of the compliance of GDPR, but I want to make sure that, again, the data is something that I can control and I can go in to delete or give a user record to the person who has asked for it. Now, once I have audited my accounts with different spreadsheets of tools that I have, what data lives there, I will also be able to easily look up once somebody requires me to delete data, where and which points do I actually need to go through. That will help me later on when it comes to processing the whole GDPR requests that may come in. The second step that I took is actually update my privacy policy. Now, if you imagine if somebody would like to see if you are GDPR compliant, then they first would look at your privacy policy. So you need to have that up to date. I would recommend to get a template. I have the template from James Chiodo at disclaimertemplate.com, which served me really well, and he helped me to actually fill it out. And this will also help you to make sure to disclose any kind of information be really transparent about what you are doing with the data, and deciding for one on a legal basis. So you need to have a legal basis under which you process personal identifiable information on your systems, and that needs to be written into the privacy policy. So full transparency for the user who is giving up this information, how we use the data and how we process it. And please don't make the mistake going to a bigger company or somebody of your competitor's website and just copying the privacy policy. It's not only copyright infringement, but also a privacy policy is really custom to your business and how you are gathering data and processing it. So you will need to individualize it. And I think it's quite cost affordable to get a template if you are a small business. If you are a bigger business, then I definitely recommend help from an attorney to get this sorted out. But the privacy policy is probably the most important part of the GDPR compliance that you will need to do beforehand. Then you will be at least 80% compliant with what GDPR actually offers, being transparent to the user who is giving up the information. All right, number 3, things that you really need to change on your website. And this is a little bit controversial, especially for us marketers. How will this affect actually our work? And the first thing that I would say is forms. You need to adjust your opt-in forms where you are actually gathering your information. Now, again, there are no real consensus on how this is done best. If you want to fully comply with the GDPR, there are models out there of perfect opt-in forms that are GDPR compliant, where you have 2 tick boxes that need to be ticked by the user, that they agree to the data that you are gathering and also processing, and that you agree to their terms of service and their privacy policy. Also linked up down below under the form fields where they're giving up that information and before they can click that subscribe button. Now, again, a little bit controversial. Will this kill conversions for good? I guess if you want to be 100% compliant, you put this into your forms. I'm still waiting for the feature sets of the tool vendors actually that give me these forms to be able to do that easily. Now, you also need to keep records of this, so all the tool vendors need to adjust to if somebody asks for that information, when did I sign up here, which IP address did I have. That's something that the tool vendors actually have to provide to you as a user of that data processing service, so you can give it on to your users. So I have checked my forms and I haven't quite complied with this regulation yet, but I will also see if others are adjusting their forms in a sense. I'm also looking for other competitors and other companies who are gathering emails, how they handle this kind of regulation before I go full on in. Now, that might not be the best thing to do, but me as a small business owner, I don't want to go first in terms of being fully compliant with GDPR. I have my privacy policy and I want to be transparent about the data, but it also depends on how it affects my business and if I can stay competitive in that way. But if you have opt-in forms, then you might need to consider changing them to become GDPR compliant. Which brings us to number 4, also pretty controversial, are cookies. So there is a passage in the GDPR that is describing cookies as personal identifiable information. In theory, you would be able to take an identifier like the client ID from Google Analytics and classify this as personal identifiable information, which now you have to disclose to the user and get specific consent. That means the cookie pop-ups that you sometimes see on websites are now mandatory and they're actually opt-in, so you can't start tracking the user and then he opts out, but rather you have to ask him for consent to track in and set that cookie. Now, I say this is a little bit controversial because GDPR is a very legal jargon, and there's also another European regulation coming out, the e-privacy regulation, which also is more regulating that cookie side of things. And this is not yet finalized. So who knows if this is actually something we all need to implement on our website. If you are inside of the European Union, you want to fully comply, yes, I would say this is a good step to do. But obviously there are levels of compliance, and I am not yet confident to put this onto my website. Maybe I will change my mind on the 25th when everybody has it on there. But for now, I will wait off till the e-privacy policy comes out and see if I need to implement this onto my website. That said, will it kill affiliate marketing, all that cookie setting that we normally do on the browser? I think that there will be some kind of watering down of these passages, and it's really up to the lawsuits that will come out and how people get fined if they determine that now everybody needs to have that. In which case, I think this is also something that the browser companies need to take care of. So if a user goes into their settings and opts out of any kind of tracking cookies, we need to, as a standard, put this into the technology. Last but not least, as the fifth step, I looked at my processes. Now, what I'm worried about is that the system is really based on somebody can come in and ask for the information, ask to have it deleted, ask to have it changed, or a regulator being able to fine you for this. So I want to be able to make sure that I know where all the information is. In the audit portion, I have already discovered which data I have on users, where do I actually gather it, and how is it processed, so I'll be able to comply with a data request form that maybe comes in and asks for their personal information. I will need to be able to go through and find that information on the spot. No, I'm not a Facebook or Google, so I don't have a technology running that actually exports that data automatically for the user, but rather I would need to go in manually and look up that data. For this case, I will prepare a process so I'll be able to know where to look and what to do when such a request comes in. And you might need to do the same, especially if your database and your personal identifiable information that you gather is much larger than just an email list, for example. So yes, these new regulations need to have processes running in the background, otherwise it gets to be a real big burden on a small business owner. Alright, so there you have it. These are the 5 steps that I took in order to get GDPR compliant, or at least partly compliant, and prepare myself for these upcoming enforcement rules. The point that I really want to stress is to get your privacy policy sorted out. You will need to have a new template for this, and James Chiodo on disclaimertemplate.com has a template that you can download and fill out, and it will also help you fill out if you have any kind of questions. This is the first step that I would do to actually get GDPR compliant. This is the minimum thing that I would do, and everything else will kind of sort themselves out, I hope, over the next few months. Who knows? I'm still a little bit confused by GDPR, as you might have noticed, and I probably will get a lot of comments down below that I shouldn't be so reckless. But again, I didn't want to make a video that is actually like, these are the compliance steps, you need to have a data privacy officer, because it really depends. It's like Google Analytics implementations. It really depends what kind of business you have in front of you and how you would apply these GDPR rules. And for me, I have determined this is the minimum amount to actually do. Maybe I need to do something on top in terms of the weird tracking techniques that I have deployed on my website. But I wanted to give you an idea on how I will handle this as a small business owner. Again, I'm not a large corporation that has a legal department. If you are one of those, you definitely should listen to them and get compliant with these rules. Now, if you want to learn more about GDPR, we did a previous video explaining a little bit more broader the overview and the idea behind GDPR. And if you haven't yet, then consider subscribing right over there, because we bring you new videos just like this one every week. Now, my name is Julian. Till next time.